From the realms of Middle-earth to the shores of the Undying Lands, this is Casterly Talk. I'm Napzok, joined shortly by Alden, Diaz, and we are here to dive deep into Rings of Power, Season 1, Episode 5, Partings. Directed by Wayne Shea Yip and written by Justin Doble. Choices, choices, choices. Every person, every leader, every ruler, and every head of the pack has big choices in this episode, and all of it flowing back into the important question of what is good. How do you decide what is good? The greater good, the small good, good for you, good for others. This is a journey through the light and darkness of the world, and each path presents these tough choices. So from Elrond and Prince Durin III, the people of the Southlands, the high people of Numenor, and all the way down to the Harfoots, let's talk about what is good. We're going to dive on in. Alden. This is a wonderful episode because I don't know the answers to what to do in all of these situations.
And evidently, neither do many of these leaders. Neither do many of these people. I mean, all the way down to the smallest Southlander. People are having lots of problems.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I do want to say thanks for listening or watching live yesterday on the YouTube show. We also put it up on the podcast. You might be listening to this episode a little bit later on, I understand. During that broadcast, we crossed over the 1,000 subscription mark on YouTube, which sets us up to be a partnered channel. This podcast has been around since 2017, but we set out to try to do something with the YouTube channel, which is harder to do in 2022 than it used to be. There's a lot of choices out there. We appreciate you watching. As I said yesterday, I do feel like a local newsman when I say that. A lot of fun, a lot of things to get through on this episode, and some overall reactions. I'll start here, Alden. A second rewatch of this episode, Partings, was very valuable for me. Loved it the first time, but I did have a little bit of feel of, man, it's almost like some, I don't know, emotional stunting. Like I felt this repeated some of the beats of episode 4 because I felt episode 4 ended with, we're going to war. Now, I didn't think we literally were going to be in war in episode 5. I just thought there'd be what I thought would be a little bit more forward momentum. And this episode did present a lot of, we're still gathering, we're still making decisions, and then we're going to move forward. That was my initial reaction. We always believe, hey, if you got the time, watch it a second time. This is why I don't have the philosophy. I don't love reacting. No problem to the people that do. Those are very successful channels. But reacting or rushing, like I used to do at my old jobs, rushing into the studio right after the episode ends to talk about it. When you haven't processed it. The second viewing for me, Alden, was very enriching. I think there's a wonderful big giant theme. There's always sub themes in all these episodes, but the light and the darkness have been at the center of this show because it needs to be. It's a modern myth. It's fantasy. It's all those kind of things. But the way they're playing it, the way they're slicing them, with it's hard to tell. And this episode was literally started with the stranger going, I'm good. I'm paraphrasing, of course, there. And it led to this entire episode about what is good. And I am just engaged. I'm excited to discuss with you. Those are my overall thoughts. I'll pitch it to you while I sit over here and try to decide what is good.
I'm still trying to process the news anchor thing that you said, because I think of it like a airline captain. And we thank you for flying Casterly Talk. We know you have a lot of options. But really, I completely understand what you're talking about with in general in the culture. I also advocate for like a rewatch or even a revisit or even just a sit down. Even just hit up your friend that's not online or that you're both choosing to have a one-on-one about this to kick around your ideas. And I think that this show, much like the other show that we cover here on this channel, House of the Dragon, is doing a lot. There's a lot of density. There's a lot of different storylines going on. And so it requires a little bit of engagement from us, which I think is good. And what is good, being the overall idea. I also see things that have been there throughout the show that really come to a head here, particularly with characters like Bronwyn about reconciling with our past. Really, everyone in the Southlands has to decide, are we going to be better or are we not going to be better? And for those who are watching us weekly and are with us like right on release schedule, that live episode yesterday is a lot funnier because both myself and Nikki accidentally called things that were going to happen here that we didn't want to happen. At least me with my boy Elrond being tested here. And that's the other thing, the test of resisting radicalization. Everybody is asking someone else, whether that's was it Malva asking Sadok Burrows to leave them behind, asking him to be ruthless. You've got Gil-galad asking Elrond to betray a friendship, but he's also making his argument. But at the same time, there's a beef underlying his argument.
Yeah.
And then you've got people, of course, in Numenor that are dealing with this on every conceivable level, from the youngest soldier all the way up to Farazan, who is like not a great person, in case that was not clear already. His own son is terrified of him. He can get a room to clear with a look. So it was interesting to see that play throughout all the storylines, chiefly, of course, with Theo and Waldrig and Rowan, I believe, is the young man who, spoilers, rest in peace.
Right? Did we didn't see it. Is there a body around I missed?
No body. Is Rowan the new Stannis? Did Rowan live?
Go on, do your duty. I'm still waiting for him to come back. Sorry, I cut you off. Well said.
No. I mean, that's really it. Like, I witnessed this episode and felt pain in every storyline, because you can see your Norries and your Arondirs and your Elendils, like everybody that is trying to be forthright. And then all these people that are like, why don't you just give in to your worst instinct? Yeah. Why not? And that's, that's a morality play, truly.
Yeah, it truly is. And I think that's why I was really engaged by this episode, at least in the questions it was asking us. And I love, and we come along here, we talk about House of Dragon, talk about Rings of Power. You and I talk Star Wars and other spots, but on Force Center, we dig into the themes. And some of my favorite Force Center discussions with Joseph Scrimshaw and Jennifer Landa are the ones where I'm like, I don't quite know where I stand on the answer. I get the question, but I'm not quite sure. And I think these shows are art that are communicating ideas, and sometimes they have very clear perspectives. I think the show is a very clear perspective, but there's a lot of moments in this episode where you're kind of ping pong and you're like, oh, that's a good point. Oh, that's a good point. Oh, but that's a good point. And to have this show, again, take this big fantasy, light and dark. That's not a surprise. We knew that was going to be in this, because that's in everything that's a big kind of morality play fantasy. And we want that. But the way it's playing with it, it's fun. So we're having a lot of fun discussing it. I don't know if this hold on, Alden, if this work. Thank you for choosing Casterly Talk Air tonight. We know there's a lot of choices for your flights. We love getting you there safe. All right, there you go. Okay.
That was that was immersive.
I feel like I'm in morning radio again. I also will say that before we dive into the themes, let's touch on a little bit on some of the lore stuff here, but I also wanted to point out here our own Middle Earth lore keeper Rachel Cushing Levine is out this week. She's traveling and couldn't be on the show. And this is a week where I think we will feel that you and I have less experience in this world, lifelong fans of the world and the movies and the books, all those kind of things. But like she has a deeper knowledge and understanding of the lore and the impact and the changes. And I think she would agree. I don't want to speak for her, but hey, the show needs to do what it needs to do. And what it wants to do in terms of themes and information. Also, we sometimes don't know what it can do. The big legalities have been talked about a lot. But I don't even know specifically. I'll admit that. I'm not in Lord of the Rings Twitter as much as I am in Star Wars Twitter, and I try to run away from Star Wars Twitter as much as I can. There is some lore stuff at play here, and some changes or new angles on it or additional information that might upset some folks, and you might have some opinions on that. And we want to acknowledge that here. Please feel free to leave a helpful or at least a good comment down below if you're watching it on YouTube, or if you're listening on the podcast, call on the Anchor app, because there's some different, perhaps different ideas of Gilgalad and the story of Mithril and the origins of that and the reasons behind it and all this kind of thing. So we might do a follow-up. Maybe Rachel will come in here and we'll do a follow-up on some of the stuff and what it means. And you might have a better understanding than even I do, but I saw a little bit of a fervor in the fandom, and I was like, I can't engage with it because I don't even know,
Yeah, it's interesting because it's almost like, and for those listening and watching, for the record, I am not sure what the mithril difference is. It's our understanding that is the sticking point. It seems with a lot of purist and diehard fans of varying degrees. But what I can say is that I am stunned that is the sticking point, because I love what they did with it so much. But again, that's my point of view. So like Ken said, just to echo, like, I love, like, if you can hit up the comments right now, whoever you are, the expert, maybe Bill Bro Baggins' shout out. Like, if you want to say, like, this is what they did and this is how it's different in the mythology, I'm into that. Like, I think that's helpful. I've said this before. Growing up reading in Marvel DC comics and being a big comics kid forever, my entire existence, I was trained to expect the difference, so it doesn't stun me as much. But I understand, like, of course, like our friend Rachel, if this is like tattooed literally on your body, it was part of your family, it was part of your wedding, it was part of everything. I completely understand why it's different. I just have the perspective of, oh, you changed it? How? Like, I think that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Look,
So,
and engaging with those changes as they come, and seeing how they play as an individual choice and decision along the way. I think I get it. Yeah, and an example I'll throw out is going back to the Star Wars world. The idea that the Sith had synthetic kyber crystals or synthetic blades.
right.
That's why their Sith lightsabers were red. That was kind of a Legends thing or expanded universe thing. But along the way, the new Star Wars canon says, no, no, no. They bleed the blades. They throw all their hate, their pain, their suffering into kyber crystals they take from other Jedi, turning them red. And I, for one, was on board with that because that seemed to be very powerful, very intentional. And I like the other way as well. I was always a fan of they're not even real. They have synthetic crystals. But I like that change, but not everyone does. So we understand that there. We just want to acknowledge that up top. And again, like Alden said, hey, give a wonderful explanation. And even if you didn't like it, explain why in a constructive way there. I do want to run down some of this stuff. So we got Gil-galad and the story of the Mithril. We got Gil-galad and Celebrimbor trying to kind of tying this all to the fate of the elves. And I'm just saying this is just some of the stuff we got in the show, whether you agree with it or not. Here's some of the stuff's revealed. And we have to wonder if that is their own belief or they're giving way to the thoughts that, I don't know, maybe Sauron's already in town. I mean, we just don't know. And he's putting some ideas in their head. The stranger, still, we returned to him. He still seems pretty nice. But now we have an Icelandic pop band looking for him, and his origins are once again front and center and a little dubious. Theo has a key. Got some big Sauron imagery there at the tower, and the Southlands call for aid, and Numenor shall answer. And also the biggest reveal, I think, Disa wanted a new dining room table, and now she has one. So those are some of the things that we learned in this episode.
Yeah, Durin, the best husband in Middle Earth. That was just to address that as a comedy beat. Like, we don't piece out comedy necessarily, but I do like to highlight it. My goodness, I could not. He had me believing, which of course is the point. But that reveal of I just hustled it for my wife is so good.
Look, I was going to hold this for some of our specific conversations. I'm using that term literally, which people can misuse. I like using it for comic effect, but without hyperbole. I would take 52 minutes of Durin and Elrond just talking.
It's gold.
It's the best chemistry in the show so far. And Disa is in there as well. But man, everything about them is just singing. It's beautiful stuff. And I love their scenes. And shout out to all the performers behind that. So, Alden, let's dive into the big themes. All right, let's dive in. Let's go into it because I think this is going to go to a lot of place. I know I am starting with this idea of, hey, what is good and what is the right choice? Everyone in this episode, it presents something that's true to them. You brought it up too, the radicalization idea. If there's a question, there's something being asked, and it's big, heavy stuff. But focusing on the start, let's start at least the first scene. This was a great intro. The Harfoots return. I missed them. And Nori and the stranger and this conversation about migrate from here to here, and along the way there's perils, 100 perils between here and there, says Nori. Things that will make you dead. In which the stranger says, I'm peril, talking about killing the Firefly. No, you're good because you're here to help. That's a powerful start to this episode that is about these big questions.
It is a beautiful scene. It's a very naturally unfolding evolution of the stranger's language. He's not suddenly out here giving speeches, but there's the understanding that, of course, we're doing a lot of time skip, and so they handled that really elegantly about the rapport that they've built up, her ability to teach him phrases, the fact that he's a quick study is all sort of built in there. But the idea that he's questioning his own nature is so... It's so mythic. It was specifically Lord of the Rings. Everybody sort of does that. And even in like the Jackson movies, like everybody at that moment has well, what am I? Do I really have what it takes? Am I doing more harm than good? And it makes me think of, we always reference Star Wars. I will reference Star Trek, Picard's famous quote. It's possible to make all the right decisions and still lose. That's not weakness, it's life. And he does make all the right choices. He does choose friendship in this episode. He does choose to be a protector. He does choose to save lives that initially, at least a couple of them, did not even want him there. And he wins favor. As Nori says, they've never loved an outsider as much as they love you, or never been kind to one as much as they're kind to you. But then he hurts her anyway. Yeah. And he can't control that at this point, per our knowledge. And so it's like, it is possible to be both. And so to ask that question and then to give an answer and then not yank the answer away, but throw a wrench, I thought was a really really heavy beat for what is the lighter storyline. So that was interesting.
Yeah, no, and I love that you brought some great stuff in there of nature. Bronwyn kind of saying later on to Arndr, like you were right the whole time. You all were right. We just are. This is our destiny to be in the darkness. That's a wonderful thing. Not a wonderful thing, but it's just a wonderful continuation of the questions asked in this opening scene. And then later on, the return with the wolves and everything. Great scene, very force pushy. Press R1 on your controller, and you can do that with the wolves. But the stranger does something good, but it exposes his darkness, perhaps, or what's in there. And he's asking himself that question up top, like you said. I'm good, but maybe he knows what his origins are. Knows what's inside, whatever the details are. As I'm calling it, the Icelandic pop band comes along, much like of Monsters and Men, one of my favorite bands, coming along looking for him. There's a lot to that, and like you said, does something good, something bad comes out of it.
Yeah, and you could make an argument, if we're connecting these storylines, which I think that this show does so well, and like, classic original recipe Game of Thrones did that too, because it was House of the Dragon is so intimate. Now we're back at this show that's like some of these people might never meet in 5 seasons, but how can we convey the same ideas? So once we set up that stranger idea and see the payoff, then it's like, well, Galadriel hurts Halbrand's feelings. Galadriel hurts a lot of Numenorian feelings, and vice versa. And then you jump over here, and Elrond is like, do I also have to do something good and hurt people? This is a question that shows up through every single one of the storylines. So when you have it here through the smallest lens, I think is really, really in line with what I like about Tolkien stuff. What I liked about Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit is that they both start with the small perspective. And not that each of these episodes needs to do it, and not all of them have. But starting here with the song that Poppy's mom used to sing that includes some of the classic Tolkien language, Not All Who Wander Are Lost is in there. That sort of really put you in the mood to absorb the ideas in like an accessible way.
Yeah, that song, and I know there's some deeper lore connections too. Again, we're kind of teasing ourselves here of not knowing all the little details here in the lore, but I think that's also, again, this is how we're approaching the show. We're being honest with it. So I've already seen some videos out about some of the deeper meanings to this song, to the text. I'm going to explore those as well, but you don't even have to dig deep to get the message. And I wrote that down too. Not all that wander are lost. Pretty powerful, because that's also about wandering through your own emotions and wandering through your own origins and your own your thoughts on destiny, your thoughts on being good, and not necessarily, I don't know, wandering to me. And I absolutely want to know your opinion. When I hear this in this context, wandering just means you don't really know the direction you're heading, but you'll know when you get there. And that does not mean you're lost. I thought that was a pretty powerful line from the song. It really jumped out to me as well.
Yeah, it's a quote that I've always loved coming from Tolkien's mythology. It's something that has always stuck out. It has graced many an Instagram caption with Starbucks and fall leaves and things. And like, see a Bo Burnham song called White Woman's Instagram for more. But the whole idea of that, like, it's like it tees up the differences between like the perspectives of even like Galadriel and Halbrand of to wander is not to be lost. I was exiled. You did X number of bad things that you are alluding to, which of course, it's television. So there's going to be a little bit of that serialization, but they're having this conversation. It's like, well, does that mean that you're directionless? Not necessarily. You're in a figuring it out stage, which I think is an important thing for all viewers to hear and see, but especially like young people that are going to this hopeful fantasy. It's like that there's a huge difference between wandering and being lost. That's why wanderlust is a word. Like that's why it's a concept. It's a completely separate emotion. You're not a failure because you haven't quite figured it out yet. I mean, and figuring it out sometimes is all you need. Like the stranger didn't join the Harfoot party and suddenly all their problems were solved and they have this great protector and they're going to get there fine. But it was a step, and sometimes a step is enough on the day.
Step is enough, man. There you go. Put it on a t-shirt.
Steps by Haim.
The Steps by Haim, a little different kind of steps, but yes, you and I love that band. You and I love that. Haim Talk is going to be the next show we do together. Absolutely one of the best rock bands of all time. There, I said it, and I'm a rock and roll DJ. It's interesting to go. There's a lot of places to go here, Alden, and take it where you want here. But I do want to stop here next on our own path as we wander through this. This I can't remember if this plays out the next scene or not. I apologize. I don't remember that. But Adar, or I keep saying Adar, however you want to say it. Good old Uncle Benjamin. This thing that we just got this question put to us of good, I'm good. What is good? Yeah, because you want to help people. That's what makes you good. And Nori's right about that. She's not wrong. But then you got this fallen elf, this dark source. Some people think he's Sauron. We're going to deal with that later. And here he is in a very dramatic way. Hey, orc, give me your arm. The sun's going to burn you. I don't want you to feel that. I want my people, my orcs. I want you to have the freedoms I have. I want all of us to live in harmony with no sun. I'm here to help because I care. It was just a wonderful thing when we got this episode going. Well, what is good? I'm not saying he's good, but I'm just saying he's putting something out there where he's like, well, my intentions are pure for us. I think you always trace the empathy for the greater good. That's how you kind of make these kind of decisions. But I thought it was a wonderful balance to the way this episode started.
Yeah, it's a total, not a bait and switch, but it's like, oh, did you like that idea? Well, how about the worst version of it?
Yes. Yes.
And it makes me think of things that like villainous actors. Adam Driver comes to mind first. Adam Driver has said, for me, it's not about good and evil. It's about who thinks they're right. And if you have this species of orcs that you have an ambiguous connection to, which I'm sure we'll explore at some point, they're teeing it up. They maybe from Adar's perspective, it's like, well, these elves came and slaughtered all of you, and maybe I, as an ex-elf, it looks like, have guilt about that. There's a lot of stuff going on. He's very offended at the insinuation that he is Sauron, it appears. So it's like, does he feel like the king of the island of the misfit toys? Right? Like Sauron's gone, and here I am, an elf that betrayed it all, and you left these orcs, your children that you made. So there's a lot going on there of who thinks they're right. And this is more of a good and evil world than the other fantasy property that we love at present. So you will fall into a camp at the end of the day. Sauron, like we can draw like the biblical Lucifer, like, oh, well, all he asked for was this, and it's like, but at the end of the day, you subjugated entire species and you tried to. So there is a pale that is crossed, but it is interesting to see sort of this idea. And then you got someone like Pharazôn, who sort of is somewhere in the middle of all of that, where he's playing the game, and he is also a father, also literally talking to his kid, not a dissimilar dynamic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We can go to Numenor next because it's time to play the game. Look, we gotta always have a pro wrestling reference in there somewhere, right? A lot of stuff going on in Numenor, as there should be a lot of stuff going on there. It's the center of a lot of story. A lot of things jump out, and we can continue the conversation. I was fascinated. Love the Pharazôn kind of reveal. Something that was talked about last week about when he's suddenly like, no, this is a great idea. Yeah, no, absolutely. Your queen has spoken. Queen Regent has spoken. We're heading over there to kind of dig into that. I love it. But even I do want to start on a smaller scale with Isildur. Well, it's small now, maybe big later for this world. I love this thing of you in an episode that's asking what is good. He's looking for something that will make him worthy of Numenor, and has to find that something he's willing to sacrifice everything for. And his desires have, I would say, never been evil, but all of his desires have definitely put himself first. Even the getting in trouble, which costs other people around him. Powerful lesson. And how his father, Lindale, saying those men were finding ways to serve. Great way to introduce us to a lot of the bigger things at play here in Numenor.
Yeah, it's really interesting because Isildur is, much like Elrond and Galadriel, a key player where we know the fate and it informs everything. So it's like, and that's a fate that whether you're a books only, whether you're Peter Jackson only, that's a sticking point. That's a fixed point in time. It will happen.
Unless you're the animated movie only, like it doesn't matter.
It's coming. If you Shadows of Mordor, where you got the Celebrimbor ghost, I never played it. I heard it was good though. But the whole idea that he abandons everything gets lobbed at him. Like, well, why would I help you get this post that I know you'll walk away from later? And it's this idea that plays with our audience expectations. Like, of course, there is someone out there that this is their first exposure to this character, and that works too. And I would imagine, you have to take yourself out of your own perspective. I would imagine that it's a very like Luke Skywalker-y type character, very classic, very King Arthur. Like, I will have my moment, and that's true. But with the knowledge of when he finally does commit and wins on behalf of his father and his people and everything, what he will abandon is like the final abandonment is the doom of us
It's
all.
the doom. Yeah.
And that trait being here in really small ways. Oh, Isildur, you couldn't even get into the Sea Guard. Like it's really like you messed up your job interview, but how that stacks and how that changes and how that breeds something else. And when you combine that tendency to walk away when things get hard, with this, I need significance.
Yes.
That is a bad thing. And that's why, and Elendil can feel this. He will never know, of course, what will come. But that's why Elendil's like, you save that guy's life, you're in. However, you're sweeping. Like you do not get to skip. And because he can see his son's better nature, but also his worse nature.
Yeah, no, I love what you're saying of that through line there, and the running away and the search for significance is something that's pretty powerful because it's in something in all of us. But how you get there is important. But I think just as important is, you're right, when you get there and you reach some sort of significance, what do you do after? It's always about your next choice. It's not just about fate and destiny taking you to some title you've earned or deserved. It's how you continue to live up to that, because it's all about these choices. So many choices in this episode. And from there, and I've been a fan of Elendil and just the way they've been presenting him in the show. It's working for me. A lot of I just like his energy and like the way he's being presented as this father with some wisdom and a lot on his shoulders there. So that's working for me. Where do you want to stay in Numenor? We got a lot in Numenor.
Yeah. I mean, Numenor has got so many, like, it's all one story, but there's the father and son of Pharazôn and Kemen. There's the greatest not random, but the greatest like sudden training scene since Arya and Brienne, which comes in the Galadriel versus like 7 people, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, there's plenty to dig in.
Yeah. The big one is, again, there's choices all the way through. And this is one of the only episodes where I found myself breaking it up by location or character and just looking at, a lot of themes. And you've already brought a lot of the themes into it, but all of it fueling back into this big topic sentence of, fueling the topic sentence discussion, I should say, of what is good as it flows back up to it. Miriel and her father, Tar Palantir, her kind of saying, it kind of ends with that big beat of, hey, we're doing kind of what you wanted, right? You want to restore this connection and the kingdom is in danger. Don't do this. And then that combined, and I don't know what you felt about this. I loved Aryan, the daughter here, the show only creation, representing something that we might view as being tied to traditions, isolationism, anything you want. She kind of starts this episode of like, no, we can't go. You got to tell your dad this is wrong. And you could view it as, well, that's not helping others. But the switch that kind of emerges, especially with Pharazôn a little later on, again, I don't want to say right or wrong, but it's shown her in a different light for me. How'd you like her place in this story and the lessons?
It was really interesting because it was not that something earns its merits just because you didn't expect it, but it was a shock to me when she had that point of view, because it contrasts not just with the Isildur, but also with her father, who she has a great respect for, a great relationship with, who showed nothing but pride when she got into this guild. And so it's like, what is her perspective? But where she comes in as a middle is that she's not a elf-hating Numenorian who doesn't want to go. She's motivated by fear. And fear of losing family. And that's why Isildur can walk away in armor and smile at her, and she just looks terrified and concerned. And the fear aspect is what people like Pharazôn prey on. It's a scale. There's people that are all the way in on the selfishness, but then there are the people that are in enough that selfish people can prey on them. And that's where Aryan is right now in terms of like, well, it's like, I love my family. I get the helping, but at the same time, is this good for society? She's clearly a thinker. She is a builder. That being her identity is like, is this going to destroy rather than build? So it's an interesting thing there that is sort of like in all the stories. The Harfoots their stranger stuff is motivated by fear entirely. The Southlanders motivated by fear entirely. So,
no, that's a great point too. Of because she is. She isn't like. She doesn't have some vision she's sharing, right? She doesn't have, and even Muriel's father there's a little bit of that going on. This is what we thought. Galadriel shows up, and this is the beginning, and you might feel the end, but how can you avoid that? How can you make changes along the way? I think it's a little bit of what's going on with Muriel, and I think she absolutely feels she's making the right decisions, because I think on the surface, this is the right decision. You want to help others. We're going to go help others. But how you do that and the relation to it, and yeah, fear driving a lot of it for Arion is very interesting perspective. And I love that you tied it into Farazan because, man, that was one of my favorite scenes. This is one of those guys that, I'm not rooting for him at all. But I really love having him around because he is not overtly evil. He's right there, as he says, I'm riding the tide. You got to know how to do that. You know what? I'll say that's great if you want to get promoted to the office. I don't think he's wrong there. But it was downright diabolical in its own way.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I did support the public rallying cry to go help people because when those people are helped, they will be able to do and tributes, gifts, trade, this, that. Like he thinks of Halbrand. He thinks of Halbrand as a future stooge, essentially. A future middle management guy across the ocean that will be able to help him and help his family and help mostly him, but Numenor. But if you feel you are the best representative of your own people, then it becomes very selfish. Like he's not coming at this from a help Numenor place. He's coming at it from a help Farazan place. And he, in the previous episode, he cites Elros, Tar Minotaur, who's Elrond's brother. And we see Elrond as this great unifier. And this guy is invoking his family for the inverse. Like he's a really manipulative, gray character, which this world does not have a lot of.
No, and it's played. Again, you can hear some of it and believe it. I'm always, and we just saw this. Not to spoil anything, but for the looking in the Andor series, where there's this one character, Cyril Karn, that almost every word he uses are words that have been used by heroes. And yet you need to follow it. I always say follow the empathy and follow to see the end of it. And Farazan's one of those guys. I mean, I go to war for Numenor. That sounds great. Okay, cool. Yeah, protect us. Expand the reach. But trailing it, following that trail to the center of what he's saying, like you said, done for himself, it becomes very clear. There's no secrets at this point with that character. You get what's going on. Now to see, I'm so interested in an episode that's asking what is good. A character like him, much like what maybe Adar did to us, is presenting to you this like, cool, you think you know what's good is, but what do you do here? Is it for you or the greater good? Where is it? And it's a little murky and a little muddy. And I just love it in a show that's dealing with light and darkness.
Yeah, it's important to show, because if this is going to be this transition period, if this second age is all the groundwork for what will happen later for a big villain return and everything, there has to be people that facilitate that knowingly, unknowingly, that think they have what it takes to facilitate it. Even small guys like Waldreg that are, why don't we just go and bend the knee to whoever this is? And it's like, you are just so out of your depth, but you're exactly what evil needs. You are the types of people.
Yes, that's a great way to look at it. You're exactly what evil needs. I don't want to take it to real world, but like even talking about space fantasies on YouTube, there's some good thoughts, there's some bad thoughts, and it's amazing. In the middle are a lot of folks that are gravitating or pulled in easily by the bad thoughts, by the bad analysis. I'm not just talking about opinions about what do you like things, but the people selling absolutely horrendous evil agendas. And it's amazing the people that will bend the knee to that, who I think generally have good intentions. Waldreg's been revealed as kind of a darker themed character in a way, some of his beliefs, his scarring, his love of Sauron. That coats him as bad a little bit, but he's also just a innkeeper, a barkeeper trying to, keep us all safe. And this is my thoughts on it. And to have him bend the knee so easily and so pathetical.
Yeah.
So pathetically. I really love that moment. Love that scene.
Especially it was a great scene. Great scene. And I on our live episode, I alluded to it, and our friend Nikki, it was like, I think that this guy is gonna try to capitulate to Adar and get beheaded. Not exactly what happened, but really, really close. It was actually worse and more heinous. It's like what does Adar say? Like, only blood can bind. Like, which to me is like dark elf, or don't just talk about it, be about it. Like you really need to
don't just tweet it, be it.
Yeah, exactly. Just bring it, man. Like, what do you really believe this? Because I do. Look at what I've done. Look at what I am. And we are not the same. Just because you show up and say that once men fought with us, like that's the thing, is that they will never. And again, not to take it too real world, but writing that line, like betraying your own You don't get to just be in. They will never see you as
Yeah.
them. You'll never
Yeah.
get in.
Yeah.
And you can, that's a hopeless pursuit.
Hopeless pursuit indeed. Yeah, and it ties to a lot of stuff going on at the tower, but we'll get to that in a second. A lot of stuff going on, Halbrand and Galadriel. I love their relationship too. I think there's a good chemistry there as well. Nothing can capture Elrond and Durin for me right now, so I have to be honest about that, but I do love the stuff going on there. Especially, I want to start with Halbrand. It's so interesting. I was going to say the odds changed a little bit for those betting in Laughlin or Reno or Atlantic City about who is Sauron. I'm still putting a lot of chips on Halbrand, but I might take a couple off after this episode. There was something at play here. You've got the Witch King, and again, we're not about predictions, and we have fun with them, but we don't hold to them. Halbrand keeps appearing to be bad, but is he good? And how do you trace it? And how do you get the center? And a lot of it has to do with him afraid of what he did. And is he telling all the truth about his story? And everything? This is all very intentional. This is all very intentional by the storytellers to make you wonder. And I've been so on like, oh, it's just very clear he's Sauron. It's very clear. And I am 10% less sure about that after this episode.
I would agree. And I was not even a Halbrand Sauron truther, but like I was thinking about people.
I got a pamphlet here. You want to read the pamphlet?
So Halbrand is a Southlander, and if you look at his necklace, a red circle around it and everything, laser eyes. Yeah, but the whole idea of Halbrand Sauron, even as somebody that like wasn't predicting that, I also have analyzed it that way, and it was almost like there are two moments: the thinking Adar is Sauron with the Waldreg, and then the throws down his family pendant and then comes back for it. That was a fake out that you don't really see in these high fantasy things. That was like modern in a good way. Like, we got you. And at that moment, when he threw it down, I was like, he's going to stay here on Numenor. He's going to be with Pharazôn, and they're going to get in each other's ears. And starts. And then he left. He armored up and he left. And I was like, oh, very interesting. Yeah, and that was, he's a focal point of the rousing ending. Of the very wonderful ending.
Looks great in his armor. He's got some skills. I've never seen a Smith apprentice do that with the story. Yeah. No, and because Halbrand and Galadriel have this great scene. It's a great scene. It's one of my favorites of the show so far. And them kind of, they're both right, using each other, right? And then so it's like, well, which one is good? But I really believed him. And again, maybe I'm falling for it. Maybe I am now going to bend the knee, Alden. I don't know. When he says, after I begged you to let me be. And I just kind of thought of like, I think he's telling the truth. I might be wrong. I'm not even, this is, predictions can change week to week. I just think this is what they're playing with, the storytellers. And that was one of the moments where I was like, because I think he's Sauron, I've been seeing, like you kind of touched on, every step he takes. I'm like, well, that's just like Sauron. Like I hang out with him at a Wendy's. I don't know. But I begged you to let me be. I was like, I think he's telling the truth right there. And that might mean he's not looking for what we think he might be getting.
That's the thing. Like we're like Sauron the Deceiver. And so like that's all there. And then we know that his human form, the Lord of Gifts. And it's like, well, now he's gifting swords and he's doing this, that. He's like showing off his new little things. And it's like, so there's all that, but it's totally playing with us. And that conversation though, is where truth really starts to bubble to the surface, even not in totality because we don't get his whole backstory. But this show, on a few different instances, thank goodness, goes against what we expect with TV characters. There's a few instances of like Elrond and Durin, like Elrond, just talk to him, and then he does. And then Theo, it's like, stop hiding this sword, and then he shows Arondir. And then here it's the, come on, like Galadriel, you cannot throw the, well, actually, you used me. That was the only time I've ever been frustrated with her thus far in this show. And I was supposed to be, because then she shows up and is like, by the way, I own that was not fair. And finally got to the I cannot stop moment, which was, I know there's been varying takes on this portrayal of her, but to me, the I cannot stop is a very compelling starting point for someone who will eventually be entirely removed. And with the knowledge of whether it's Book Galadriel or Cate Blanchett, we all want to always think about Cate Blanchett. That's a very reasonable way to live. Why would she be the Lady of Lorien and go away? after all this, that's why. And so that sort of finally, that sort of not that finally it connected, but like in a okay, you finally told some truth. You've gotten there only briefly with Muriel and with Elrond. Elrond saying, "What about what's in here?" Then with Muriel, that there is a tempest in me. This finally got rid of the poetry and was like, "I'm in pain. Like I'm in pain."
Well, I look. Why do you keep fighting? Because I cannot stop. Great exchange, right? Very mythic. Loved it. Over the top in the most wonderful ways. But the follow up here, and I didn't write down all the quotes. I just summed it up there. But just the fact that she's like, my unit mutinied. They left. My friends can't tell the difference. I thought that was one of the most real moments with this character so far. And again, I don't know all the answers. The themes. I'm not looking at the themes completely at a detached intellectual level. I'm looking at it as I always do when I watch these kind of shows and movies. I'm there on the ground with them, wondering how this applies to my own life, and I just feel Galadriel in this moment. My pursuit is a good one. My pursuit is the question of what is good. You want to help others. This helps others, this pursuit of the ultimate evil. But in doing so, or how I do it, or how I approach it in this desire, this vengeance, maybe, wherever we look at it, they can't tell the difference anymore. That's something you got to recognize, and it's something you got to correct, deal with, process, even if you're going to go forward in the same kind of direction, asking yourself how and why.
Yeah, and we're also building that into a, again, it is television, so it's like who knows what. When you look at the way Gil-galad is and what he says later on to Elrond when he's talking about the tree and everything that they, precious few know this, but we actually started to see some of this right before we sent her off, which is different than the context that we had where we thought it was like, oh no, I made a mistake. No, he knew this corruption was happening. And then you look at this villain Adar, who's got an elvish name, elvish ears. It's like, is the Adar problem what they're afraid of with her? Is that the end point of what Gil-galad has seen? Because with a character like that, with characters like Galadriel says that can't tell the difference, it's hard to endear them at all to the audience. For example, when the dinner scene starts and Durin and Gil-galad are trading barbs, and Durin absolutely wins because he's great at this.
He is.
It is, you hate Gil-galad in that moment because he's being so condescending. He's trying to cause a rift. Even Celebrimbor, who I got issues with, is more reasonable than Gil-galad in that scene.
You got heat with Celebrimbor? So do I.
I do have heat with big heat with Celebrimbor. I don't like your tone, man. You're always talking about people's fathers and trying to manipulate. But Gil-galad does that, like you addressed earlier. It's not a bad point. It's your delivery is terrible. But what you're saying, like, if what you're saying is true, consequences are pretty dire and something must be done. But at the same time, only Elrond can be straight up with another person and another people. Gil-galad doesn't have the integrity to go to Durin III and talk about this. And that's a big problem, is who has integrity is a big thing throughout. And that's what separates, like when you think Theo might falter, Waldrick's calling out to him. Theo chooses integrity. And that's why I love what Arondir saying, it took me 200 years to build up bravery and you did it in 14. It was a beautiful little moment too.
I love that moment too. We can come back to a lot of the stuff going on in Linden, but if you want to either go on the road with the Harfoots or up in that tower, your choice, Alden, because both have delicious theme work, and including, and I love what you pointed out. I had that thought too with Theo. It's like, just show him the damn sword. Oh, you did. Okay, good.
Yeah, you get to that point in TV. It's just a thing. We're so trained to be strung along. I think all of us growing up with network television sort of has built that into our minds, especially in the 22 episode format that we all like know the iconic shows to have had. It's to be here and people are just like being honest. It's a great thing to see. Let's stick there because I think that the first couple's argument that we got between Arondir and Bronwyn is full of richness, but she's never not sympathetic. Because again, it's coming from a place of not fear, like I'm afraid of X. Like she's not fearful prejudice like some people are here, but she's fearful of herself and of her own people. And she already kind of had that guilt when in episode 1, when they talked about the village that she's from. And now it's all coming to a head, and it's Arondir that's like, he's talking about hope. Which, we'll talk about hope again with Gil-galad because he has a beautiful, beautiful moment about hope.
I wrote all that quote down. It was great.
Yeah, gorgeous, beautiful writing. But then, yeah, this moment with Arondir sort of is highlighting, underlining that theme where Arondir's like, there's got to be a way. Well, do you know it? I don't know it, but there has to be.
Yeah.
That's what separates heroes from everyone else.
All that wander are not lost. I think that's that moment there. No, I love this conversation. And we're kind of jumping to the end of the conversation, I guess, or the end beat there at the stuff at the tower, because there's a lot of this like, hey, Bronwyn says, together we can survive this. And Waldrig's like, follow me. And together we will. We have those kind of things there. And I also wrote down, you are Sauron, are you not? Great moment. Oops, I may to quote Joe Bluth. I think I made a huge mistake. Love all that stuff, but the Bronwyn moment was also very real. It's this moment of despair. She simply believes that their destiny is darkness. She says that maybe it's how we survive. Perhaps it's who we are. And what I love about this, you talk about fear. This is like this personal fear, Alden, and how this is our own lives, and this is what I want these shows to do. I want to know the story of the elves and the dragons and the wizards and the Balrogs. I want all that. I want to know all that, and I want to engage with it on that surface level. But I also want to take this home with me. And Bronwyn, at the beginning of this episode, or even the beginning of the season, she is good-hearted, she is strong, she's steadfast, she's stalwart, she's all these wonderful, strong words there. And she starts this episode going, no, we could do it. Like, it's tough, but we can do this. We can do this. We can do this. And don't we all have those moments in life where we're like, we can do this. And then you wake up one day and go, I cannot defeat who I am. And who I am pulls me away from this. Maybe it's not worth it. And maybe this is what I am. I'm lazy. I'm ineffectual. I'm all these things. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And you start to believe it. And that's that fear that takes over. And I thought this was a very real moment. Absolutely uplifting and inspiring by going into that darkness, touching the darkness to hopefully find the light.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what, to connect it to Theo as well. Like, what he presents to Arondir is his experience, only being 14, but still, like, the whispers, the knives that were too sharp and everything. And Arondir's like, yeah, we did.
Oh, I love that.
He's like, I own that we observed your darkness, and I own that we observed what we felt were the worst instincts, and we observed you and policed you and were unfair to you. But at the same time, I saw individuals, not a blanket statement collective.
Yeah.
And he gives that to both the mother and the son here. He's giving them the perspective of like, yeah, you're not wrong. That's why this tower's here. Look, we got a carving up here. Like, you guys are not wrong, but why should that define you? And that's so classic, especially for this franchise in good and bad ways. Like, that's the whole point of like hobbits being some of the main characters is, yeah, you're not supposed to be adventurers. You don't have what it takes. You're not the strongest. You can't fight. And you could list out all these things of why you should not be qualified. But that doesn't mean anything because it's about individuals. It's about like personal stakes. Like, Theo, you proved that you were above the dark men of the first age by not going, by staying. You did that. And I think that they needed to hear how they could be different instead of hearing how they could be the same.
Yeah. I think that exactly highlighting what is there. It's whether you want to just boil it down to glass half full, glass half empty. That's Arondir in this moment, Yes, half left, half stayed. I wrote down this thing too of save what we love, not fight what we hate. Hey, we've heard that before. There's lightsabers around. I think that's very valuable, and all of it's running through there. I don't know. And there's sometimes, again, all who wander are not lost. Arondir does not have the answers. He will train to fire as many bows as we can. Don't be afraid of that string. That's all we can do right now. We don't have the answer right now. I think of Theoden. What can men do against all this hate, all this stuff? Ride out with me, Aragorn says. Ride out with me. We'll see what happens when we get beyond that door. The point is we do. And I think that's what emerges. The answer, the tower possibly being used as a weapon. What we'll see. I love that moment. They do find the answer because they simply, as you said earlier, took the steps towards something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could not have said that better. It's that ride out with me moment is the ethos of like this entire thing. Like, yeah, evil's not going to stop. And that's something that Gil-galad even highlights when he talks about the natures of good and evil that they believe are imbued into Mithril is like, it's got the such and such and such of goodness, but also the strength and the resilience of evil. I might have the words wrong. Strength and maybe resolve, something like that. But Gil-galad is making that point. Like, evil does not stop. It's not gonna bend for you, and you can capitulate. You can run, or you can stand because standing is right. And that's something that Arondir, you can tell he's carrying that from like the Watch Warden, who like refused to cut down the tree and stuff like that, like because he's like, this tree's been here and it deserves a chance. And not that Arondir thinks of Bronwyn like a tree. I don't think that would go well in their flirtations, but yeah, it's a very powerful and compelling and hopeful. Everything in this episode is extremely hopeful, even when it gets grim.
This is my word of the month for House of the Dragon or now this episode is a little somber. There's some somber stuff going through there, but it always seems to end towards hope, which we'll talk about in a second. It's always kind of there. So powerful stuff. I'm looking forward to. And again, when I said up top, as this episode kind of had some what I thought was repeated emotional beats from some episode 4, I stand by that in a way, but I think the second viewing separated the episodes a lot for me. But I am so excited for that fight of that tower. I've got like 2 towers energy for that fight. With that, how many days? No, probably hours. I can't wait to see what goes on here. It's very Lord of the Ringsy, and I think I've been not missing in the show. I've just been waiting for it to emerge to this level.
Yeah, because so far it's been like a small skirmish here. We'll fight one troll. We'll run through the forest. Like it's building, but this is like you said, Helm's Deep. Like there's a place to defend. They are all coming. We're getting a march with torches. It's on.
A march is happening.
And what is the whole? What realization are they going to bring the tower down? And there is no tower to take over. Like who knows? Yeah. But it feels like inspiration struck in some way.
It does. And we got that key. Do we need to destroy that key? Because this is my mindset. I don't know how this attaches to themes, the episode, or the lore. I'm like, look, you got this sword. I know it's probably bad. Can we use it to our advantage? What can we do? I know they want.
I don't like Boromir right now, Ken.
I do, right?
I don't like Boromir. I'm just saying.
Give it to Gondor. Give it to Gondor.
We will do awesome stuff with it. Yeah. No, it's true.
Yeah, no, the darkness and light, sometimes one and the same there.
Well, that's why we're men. That's why we're always always an issue in every fantasy setting.
We are always as we should be. On the road with the Harfoots, going back in there, as we said up top, the path ahead fraught with perils. That starts the episode. We got the great song and along the way. But you mentioned it. I wanted to highlight this. Good to have Sadok Burrows back, Lenny Henry. Malva asked Sadok the important question about what is good, but also what helps others, what truly helps people. Because she just straight up suggests Nori and House Brandyfoot leaving them behind, which I had already thought that had happened. I was like, they're way back. Okay, they're way back. All right, they caught up, or whatever the details are. I really don't care. But when she was like, we de-wheel them, I'm like, damn. The Harfoots go hard, man. They're just your wheels off. But she's talking about the woods and urban, this bad, all that kind of stuff. But I love her question. And again, is it right? Was it right to think this? I don't know if it's right to think of it. Maybe it's not right. Maybe it's not wrong to ask it. What's it going to take? Make a widow of someone or an orphan? What weigh it out? And every leader in this episode is being asked to weigh something out. Go to the many, go to the few, all these kind of big fantasy questions. I love that moment. And in that moment, Alden, I don't have the answer for her. In the moment, I don't know. I don't want to leave them behind. I think that's harsh. But does leaving them behind save us? I don't know. So like you said, we have to go to the core of it, to the fear. Does fear guide? Does empathy guide? And I thought it was a powerful moment for those little Harfoots.
It is, especially coming off of that beautiful moment of We Wait for You, where we put into our history, into our shared communal lore, what not only that we miss you and love you, but what happened to you. And my thought for her in that moment was, I felt like I was a Harfoot in that moment saying, and what are you going to write? Abandonment? Betrayal? Like, what will you, how will you justify this to babies when you are saying the story later? Like it's, you have to reconcile. And that's throughout all the things, like with the past, but also thinking about like that we will be the past. And what are they going to say? I mean, that's something that coincidentally was a huge point in House of the Dragon at this moment. Like, what are they going to say about me from 500 years from now, Lord Strong? I don't know, my lord. Take a bath. But that moment of realizing that Sadok I felt like he was having similar thoughts as the keeper of the histories.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the Harfoots are really interesting to me, more than I expected. The whole, nobody goes off trail, nobody walks alone, meaning we stay together and we'd survive, but don't you change and don't you take risks. Reminds me of my upbringing in the 80s. So my mom has so much fear that I wasn't allowed to do a lot of things and probably was harmed for it in some ways. It's not to get it too personal, but I'm fascinated by them because I think they're going to have a change. I think Nori could represent, and Poppy, a new generation looking at things differently. They brought in this outsider who's now more beloved than any other outsider, maybe the history of the Harfoots, right? And we'll see where that goes. It doesn't necessarily mean it ends well. Going to your Picard quote, which is apparently from something called Star Trek.
Star Trek.
Okay, they trek around. They don't war around the stars. Got it.
No, they've never fought. They just talk.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Phasers don't stun. Got it.
Exactly.
Anyways, I don't have all the pitch perfect analysis of this. I just really love this scene. It was really, really important. And I'm just wondering, is Sadek going to lead some sort of change, right? Not whether they join the bigger fight or not or whatever. I don't know. But what are they going to do here? It's a fascinating sub-story.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not think of them sometimes as the progenitors of the hobbits and like being the proto hobbits and what's going. And is Nori like our analog for Frodo and stuff? And like, there's those parallels, of course, but it's like with them being nomadic and having this lifestyle, you gotta wonder like season 5. This is my wild card season 5 prediction. Last Nori scene, she's like, "This is Hobbiton." Boom, like. We don't run anymore. Like you want to stick together, then we really will. No more threats of wheels, no more threats of change and wolves. Like we can have this, and there's still that lingering like don't do anything nuts or weird that hobbits have. Bilbo went on an adventure and it's a scandal, but the change from constantly fearing of being left behind to having a neighbor. Is a change that I think Nori could definitely bring about. So I'm both serious about that prediction and also kind of joking, but I do think that's the thematics there.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely that makes a lot of sense. I remember we, all through Game of Thrones, we kept joking of like, is this going to end with someone writing a book about it? It kind of does. It kind of does.
Yeah,
kind of does. Jim Broadbent's character writing a book there, but yeah, there's something about that. I had that thought too of they're so nomadic, and they're nomadic because they kind of have to survive that way. And this idea that they might land and start digging some holes and stick around could be pretty powerful. But we'll see along the way. I also have again, who is the stranger? We could talk about that here right now, Alden. Who it might be. But I keep thinking, if all roads lead to one final conflict, the Harfoots showing up with a powerful stranger at their side could be key to the story there. I'm a little bit joking, but kind of tracks in some way.
Yeah, he has the potential for so much greatness and so much not greatness that we've seen illustrated here. The ability now that we know, like very firmly, now it feels like I'm going to talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender, to wield fire, to wield wind, to wield now ice and water. Like he's of this earth, and like of course, like in a smart aleck way, I want to be like, see, I told you he was Tom Bombadil, but like I really don't know. If we have to do, if we take out Gandalf and Radagast and Saruman and everyone else, and it's just the who's Sauron game. This episode maybe cranked up Stranger a little bit when it cranked Halbrand down a little bit.
Okay.
But I don't think that Sauron is how you tell the story of goodness. And so I think that thematically he's now firmly separated. And now I'm firmly in wizard or something new territory. Or Tom.
Yeah. Or Tom Bombadil. Yeah, no, I know Blue Wizard's real popular. A lot of people can point to lore things. For some, say Blue Wizards or against something like Gandalf or Saruman. I get that, and that's a lot based on lore. But yeah, I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by this, and without digging too deep into the lore of it, with this, what I keep calling the Icelandic pop band showing up here looking for him. What would you make of all that?
It's interesting to think about the way that this show has leaned into not all is what it seems, which is such a classic thing. So where you see them and it's like, well, they're evil, but then at the same time, it's like, well, are they? Because we've seen the whole point of this Sauron mystery and of the Sauron character, especially in the Second Age, is the deceit and is the being beautiful. We've seen people like Gil-galad and Celebrimbor, who are like these like supposed paragons of this beautiful, wonderful race and what they're able to do. So then you show me these creeps. And it's almost like the show has trained me to think like, and they are really creepy. The show has trained me to think like, okay, you're creeps, but I shouldn't judge you. creepy. Maybe you're looking for him because you're like, hey, welcome to new wizard initiation. We're great. We're good people.
Yeah. Can I be helped if I have like kind of freaky eyes? Come on, don't judge me.
Yes, looking like an ambiguously magical M&M is not your fault.
That's your fault for judging me, man. Yeah, I also loved it. There was something I don't want to say inherently funny about it, like I'm mocking it, but I really like to see it. I think you got one's kind of holding the little plate, the shield with the symbol on it that he's been drawing. It was a really kind of I love the scene, love to play it off because we had seen some of this in trailers, right?
Yeah.
So to finally get it, it was like, here we go. And to have even I felt less answers. I love that sometimes. I do love big mysteries driving certain elements of the plot forward, and it shouldn't be everything. I'm not a big fan of every mystery box that's out there, but this is kind of funny. And I felt out of this episode, I had been saying 100% no Sauron. I don't know, maybe 99% no Sauron. I don't know, but I just felt now I have more questions, and that's always fun for me.
Yeah, I think it's a great element just to visually tell us that there is something larger that, if you're a fan and you're digging into it, I think that scene is to tell you keep digging. We want that sort of fun engagement. We want to drive things into a mysterious place, which is very modern. Star Wars has added more mystery in its modern era. So like, why shouldn't Lord of the Rings? Star Trek has as well. Why not? Try to keep you guys going, especially because we're in the world of and this is the real world conversation. We're in the keep you watching era. We have to be, and so that's a good way to do it, but it's also elegant, and it doesn't feel, I never feel like it's like a tune in next time. Like it never has that energy.
No, and again, it's how you use it. I said I don't love every mystery box idea, but because speculate but that's not it doesn't even have to do with the properties or the mystery boxes. It's sometimes the reaction of it. That's just a personal thing where I felt speculation replaced actually watching the shows and understanding the shows, but to each their own. But with this one, again, it's how you use it. So the mystery of the stranger is pretty fun on its own, but it's so tied into the theme this week where you're not just asking who's that, you're asking, is that person good? And that's what's at play, and that's what's at stake. So it has a little bit extra oomph and power to me.
Yeah, and when you put it through the lens of Nori, it becomes this like you're hoping that this is not naivete, but that she is onto something, because you don't want her heart to break or yours to break for her as a viewer if you're endeared to her, because her belief is palpable, and if that becomes a cynical sort of fall for her, that will be really, really heartbreaking. And and does that play into like sort of the community that they have? Is there going to be a moment where, I'm joking now, but like, is Sadok Burrows going to be like, I once met a stranger and let me tell you why we don't like strangers? Like, so who knows what it could be, but
we do not wait for them.
They're not in the book.
There, look, there's actually something. It does drive my thoughts on the stranger, and why I think I am leaning towards whoever they are to be on the good team, so to speak. It's because of Nori, Poppy as well. I want to was making Richards plays Poppy so wonderfully, but that Nori, that speech where she's like, I know I'm not special, but I think he is, and I think this is what connected, and just you just want to be like, no, but you are special too, and I want that to pay off. That's not always how life works out, so we'll see. But I think you touched on something there that's pretty true.
Yeah, I mean, Lord of the Rings and so many of our great stories are not just about the people that are good; they're about the people that facilitate people that are good. Or maybe you're not the hero, but you're the person that helps the hero. And like, why Samwise Gamgee is an iconic pop cultural beloved role is because he quite literally carried the hero, the hero, and in that you become your own. Which is absolutely arguably one of the greatest themes that Lord of the Rings ever put forth.
I always want to lean into the camera and go, share the load. Share the load.
Potatoes.
I ain't dropping no eaves, sir. Before we get out of here, we're almost wrapping up the show, but we're not going to leave this stuff off the table, and quite literally the table. Those at the center of the peaceful conversation. Let's go to Linden. Let's go hang out with everyone over there. We got a lot. Alden, this is, I'm saying we're about to wrap up the show. We could be here for a few minutes. So much going on there. And this is maybe where some people might run up against not just the lore, but how certain characters are being presented versus what you knew or what
Yeah.
you know or what you thought, and I understand that. I completely understand that. I always just say, hey, you're getting more information, you're getting additional information, or this show, beyond the legalities of what they actually can say or do, this show is trying to do its own thing and has this toolbox of characters to use. So a lot going on here. We got Gil-galad, the High King. I'm with you. Sometimes I don't like him. Sometimes I think he's making great points. Celebrimbor, unfortunately, a lot of us know maybe some of the things he does, but we got to try to put that aside when analyzing these episodes and take what's given. And what's given is someone that I just don't trust. Though
Yeah, man, Celebrimbor, you did that stuff last time with the whole, I just remembered something about your father because you kind of looked like him. But it's also going to be very relevant to me nudging you into, it's like you can apologize to Elrond for your part in the manipulation, but you are the manipulator. Like you could have also stood up to Gil-galad if you wanted to.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, well, the king forbade me, so I had to manipulate you.
Yeah, sorry, he takes that. I wanted to tell you, I'm clean. I'm clean. And then when he describes everything, Gil-galad, I'll say this, if we can get into details. Sorry, I'm jumping around a bit, but we go into the story of the mithril and the tree and the wonderful light and the dark infused into it. We see the Balrog that a lot of people are like, well, we're absolutely going to see one. Well, here's maybe not necessarily the trailer shot, but we absolutely see one here. So maybe they don't use it like we think in the show, or at least this season. But all that stuff, I want to get your takes on it. When you're listening to Gil-galad, kind of what we're saying with Halbrand earlier, of like, in that moment, whether I'm wrong, we'll find out. But I believed him. I begged you to leave me alone. Gil-galad, he got some issues. He's got some a little pompous at times for me, a little self-righteous. I know. But then I believe him where he's like, no, this could save us. Take that. Put it with Celebrimbor, who's kind of like obsessed. He's a little bit my precious scene already to me. And I love the two interplays there.
It's a textbook example of you can be right and then utterly be wrong through your approach, because Elrond, despite being the younger, not young by anyone's standards, but young by theirs, has the approach of actual unity, of actual honesty, because it's like, Gil-galad, if what you're saying is of the importance to which you are describing, why not at this dinner say, I have to level with you. Yeah. We will die. Like a plea that clearly works because Durin is a good person, but he is conflating righteousness and need and despair and our doom with prejudice is really what it is. You are so stuck in this that you will take a harder, more deceitful path toward something that is entirely reasonable. Because Durin has fun poking Elrond because he's his friend, but he immediately takes that seriously. The entire elven race is in my hands. Whose hands? Like, he has fun with that. But he's a father. He's also trying to do things right. He's a friend, and you look down on him, and you would rather con him into survival than work towards survival.
Prejudice is a very wonderful, strong word to use that I think is appropriate here from Gil-galad to him, but also this idea of you just not trusting the dwarves enough, right? Or King Durin or Prince Durin, you're not trusting them enough to be like, exactly what Elrond's doing. I've almost accidentally quoted him, like, it's in your hands. And Gil-galad cannot trust them, and maybe there's reasons for it. There's some break going on. They're not all as copacetic as he used to be. We get that, and we know where maybe this ends up. But I just analyzing it for this episode for what's right in front of us. That was the big difference, because in an episode that's asking what is good, it ends with, at least for now, we know the dwarves dig too deep, but it ends with Durin kind of answering the question. Elrond too, but Durin's good. Durin's good.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He immediately understood. Like, what he is hearing there is, hey, man, I was an unknowing pawn and really manipulating you and your entire people, and I am running risk now of being Oathbreaker. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to break an oath. I'm going to tell you what I'm going through. And Durin, these are the part of their chemistry is these performers and the writing, but it's just like the honesty between them is so fresh to see, especially between like men that are leaders in fiction. Like, that's not something that you get a lot. There's usually a lot of clashing. I think a lesser version of this scene could have ended in a blowout. But it's like, no, I of course I empathize with that, because we too, our entire thing has been about the advancement of the people, you just helped me reconcile with my father in the previous episode. So of
Mhm.
course I understand. Like, I think Durin is, because of the reconciliation with Durin the Third and the, my son, I'll always be with you. Sometimes, most of all, in anger. Like,
Yeah.
that beautiful scene endeared Durin, I think, to the idea of, oh, we really all do answer to someone, and it's not hard. But Elrond gave me the push, and now I've dealt with his boss. And Elrond's father is gone. Literally, he's a star. Literally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, this is the father Elrond deals with in
Yeah.
practice. And to see, but then
Mm.
Gil-galad also is pretty spot on with everything he says about teaching Elrond a life lesson that is connected, but also in general.
Let's really get into that. Because I put down Gil-galad might have been lying to Elrond, but what is the greater good here at play? And I think we already touched on some of the stuff with Gil-galad of just didn't trust the dwarves. There's some things he's done wrong, but maybe done wrong for the greater good. Whereas maybe Celebrimbor is doing stuff for something else. I don't know. We'll put him on the shelf. Anyways, I love it, and I will just get to that quote here. Actually, in a wonderful story. Again, I know. Is this the origin people had for Mithril's? That it play on is different. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you this, I absolutely love it for the show. I love it for the show because the Mithril, it's dark but reflecting light. It's the themes here, man. That tree is infused with both light and darkness, and therefore so is this this ore that they're battling over, essentially. So I love that, and this all leads to this wonderful quote, and we can dive into it all. Then, hope is never mere, because Elrond has said mere hope. Hope is never mere, Elrond, even when it is meager. When all other senses sleep, the eye of hope is first awake and last to shut. Real powerful stuff. He does go on to talk a little bit more about the exact cause, but and it all leads to this: if the elves leave now, it will be the end of all people. And well, we know this to be true. We know this. It's not just about knowing what happens; it's the choice here right now that's being. Elrond hasn't read the books. He hasn't seen the movies. We know, we have the benefit of knowing, but all leads to this moment. Gil-galad's not lying.
No, he's not. And again, he can be a little bit, because also there's that tag of, it'll be the end of all people. So if you don't do this, find a new one. Like, obviously I'm paraphrasing, but he throws in that find a new one or get a new whatever, essentially saying, look, I've laid it all out to you. Now it's time to like put up or shut up, and you can betray your own. Like, so he's still twisting a little bit, but the ethos of that, the core, the actual idea of hope, the eye of hope being the first to open, last to shut, is beautiful. And I love that line, because he is right about that if we throw our hands up, then we saw what happened with Finrod and everyone in the first stage and that whole war in the prologue. So we understand that he has firsthand experience, as do many of them, with what could happen. We know that he's had this paranoia lingering in him. So it's a really important thing to impart in someone like Elrond, who will lead, who right now is, as we know, not getting invited into the Elf Lord meetings. He's a speechwriter still. He's a diplomat, but he's being groomed for leadership. And this was maybe not through the best person to deliver the theme, but was right.
Yeah, no, that's in terms of like lessons on leadership. Yeah, this is important. I think of just I guess tying it a little bit to House of the Dragon, of some of the stuff. For those that aren't watching the show, you might not get the full reference, but it's like King Viserys. Not only is he trying to be a king, struggling to be a king, but he also has a bit of information, prophecy, but a bit of information that makes it all a little bit more tougher. Of here's what's really at stake. Gil-galad is that right now to me. He's the High King who's like, look, I know, I get it. I'm the boss. You don't like me when I walk into the break room, but I maybe understand a little bit more of what's going on there. It's not. I don't want to connect Gil-galad directly to Farazan, but that quote from Farazan of sometimes the folly of youth is enough to make an old man weep. As an old man here in this situation, I really get that. Whether or not you follow it out and the intentions might be good or bad. Anyways, tying it back to Gil-galad, it's a powerful moment for Elrond, which all leads to this big thing of it does a story from Celebrimbor again, but your father said he was the only one that could do it. And I think a lot of the characters in this show, in this episode, are the only ones that can do it for their world and their story.
Yeah, and the lingering of the past on a macro level of like, we fought this enemy before, and if we leave, it'll win. But then that drills it all the way down to the personal level with Elrond. And also, much like the orcs, much like Durin, much like a lot of these people, Galadriel's house has fallen, like much like a lot of people.
Yeah.
Your family's example or lack thereof, or deeds or not great deeds, it's all there for everyone. And Elrond is now having to reconcile with like, well, it's an unequivocal fact that what my dad did turned the tide. Is this my moment to turn the tide? But I'm not even sure when the tide's coming, what's going on. I mean, there's the deadline of spring, but that hasn't been like, that's also being said by Celebrimbor, who's very clearly has said, I want to move beyond works of petty jewel craft. So it's like the Celebrimbor side hustle is conflating with what Gilgalad is saying.
That's an excellent point. We're having fun with a little bit, as we always do and should, but Gilgalad's like, we might die. Celebrimbor's like, I got a deadline at my work. You mind picking that stuff up? Like,
yeah. Celebrimbor basically gets to leech onto Gilgalad's fear in a certain way, and it's like you're not, like, we're joking, but we're not. Like, it's like, we might die, and Celebrimbor's like, by spring, and they're like, how do you know it's by spring? I just got a feeling.
I don't know. I just need let me check my watch here. I need a load of mithril ore for something. For the
people, for the cause, right? For the cause.
Yeah, and yes, we're joking. Lore details aside, I just really thought it was effective. I thought the stuff in Linden was my favorite stuff of this episode. And I really love the Harfoot stuff too in that opening scene. But good. And I really truly could take an entire episode of Elrond and Durin the Fourth talking, just hashing it out, joking, stealing tables. Great moment. I fell for it too. I was like, damn, what did they do? What did they dug deep into that IKEA and Linden and pulled this out? And when it's revealed to be a little bit of a joke or a trick from Durin, I really love that moment. Just love him. He's my favorite so far in the show, I think.
Yeah, he's right there for me as well. That trio and those characters, and seeing, and again, it's played in a way that, because sometimes when you do like those fake outs, like, you can almost then revisit it and lose some heart in the scene. And this is not one of those times. Even on a rewatch, knowing that he's conning Gilgalad out of his dining room table, you still know that it's coming from the place of, you don't respect me.
Yeah, you don't exactly. And you've conned me, man. We're here because you conned me. We're here. I got to ask you the same question. Should not be my Durin voice, but I love it.
Can't wait for him to show up to his dad and be like, Dad, I found out what's going on, and I got the table.
And I got a nice table. Deuce is happy there. Anything left on the table you want to discuss before we start getting on out of here? All big stuff, I'm sure.
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything big. The only thing I would say is that, to tie it all the way back to the beginning, to close our little loop here, we talked about, is this repeating beats? You could make an argument for that, for sure.
Yeah.
And do I understand that? Absolutely. But what I love throughout is that it, with the full context, now as a two-part, we're leaving, it becomes it sort of almost does a thing that fantasy hasn't really done much of, which, like, Game of Thrones does it a lot. In Game of Thrones, it takes a while to develop the force to do a battle. Yeah. Everyone's got to say yes or no. It's a whole thing, but that's its own sort of beast. But
you refuse the call.
Exactly, but you don't see.
I saw a Leanna Mormont tweet I really liked earlier today. So.
Yeah, I wonder who did that. Must be great. Give him a follow. But the whole idea of we said that, and everybody raised their hands to serve, and then we actually dealt with the blowback of them doing that. Causes a little bit of that repetition, but it then earns through its willingness to revisit a little bit, but also flesh out moments like training of whoever can take. Whoever can cut her flesh gets the lieutenant rank, lieutenant, as I think they're saying.
Lieutenant,
yeah, lieutenant, yeah. And then that whole element of seeing them finally realize, like, maybe she ain't so bad. That was kind of fun, and how that builds all the way up to the end, where Bear McCreary is like going to the Church of Howard Shore with that Numenor theme, but it's this enhanced version of it, this new interpretation of forward momentum. And then it's like, I just love the directing here, the way that it and the editing choices of the Halbrand thing, which I've talked about, little fake out, then him in his armor, then Muriel, then Elendil with an all-time fantasy helmet, and then Galadriel shows up and does the last one, and the way that everybody has gone from fear to awe and from fear to respect and to really understanding, like, unlike Pharazôn, who's like, hell no, will I answer to them? Elendil's are like, hell yes, she earned our respect.
Yeah. Great way to look at it and great way to take it home. Yeah, slight repeated beats. I just mean I was ready for the next step and ready to get off the island to go to big fight. Whether the fight is right or wrong, we'll find out. And I was happy to wait a week because it led to a bigger send-off. It was a wonderful send-off. We talk about being Lord of the Ringsy. This was Lord of the Ringsy. You're right to shout out Bear with the music. Wonderful stuff. Armor, there's some all-time fantasy armor in this episode. Love it. Love everything about it. So powerful ending, and we are ready for next week. Maybe a fight at a tower. I know we're not necessarily getting the big final fight of this season. We're gonna get some more answers after this. Only 3 episodes left? That's tough to believe, Alden.
Yeah, I respect it. I get that it's so much to make that's become a norm. Mandalorian does 8.
Yeah.
I get it. Book of Boba Fett was even less. It's 7. All the Marvels, for the most part, have been 6, except a couple exceptions. So I should be used to it by now. But that I wish there was more is a good thing. So
yes. Leave him wanting more. I can tell you, as a stand-up comic, hit that like, get off the stage, so there's no doubt that you were funny in anyone's mind. All right, we are out of here today. A lot of fun. Rachel should be back next week. And also, I don't want to commit them too much, but I think Alex and Molly Damon are going to be able to join us next week. We'll have a big panel. Alden, we have a lot of people talk about some of the big stuff coming down the pipeline. Should be a lot of fun. They don't just explain Star Wars. They love Lord of the Rings as well. So stay tuned for that. We got our House of the Dragon episode 6 breakdown and discussion will be coming your way later this weekend. A lot of stuff. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. If you watch on YouTube or you listen to the podcast, or hey, hopefully you do both. Maybe you watch us and then you take it all in again on the podcast side. You can find us on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, all the podcast spots. Follow us on Twitter at Casterly Talk. Follow me at Napzok or go to my website, napzok.com. Speaking of stand-up comedy, we got what I'm calling the fall crawl. Mark Ellis is headlining a lot of places as he heads towards his big event. Some stuff coming up later in this year that he's going to announce soon. So I don't want to step on all of that, but a lot of fun. So we're going to be doing some comedy in New York City on October 6th and 7th, a little bit later in the month in San Diego area and Seattle as well. So go to my website for more information, tickets on that. Alden, you had the big interview with Ryan Johnson. You also Mercedes Vernado. You've been hitting some home runs. What's next? What's the big surprise you're pulling out? Tell us now.
Well, you see, George Lucas, and no, not George Lucas. Although maybe one day, who knows? Maybe I can go to the ranch and offer him Sabaros, and he'll say
there you go.
But yeah, Ryan Johnson and Mercedes were both the last guests on Octo Radio, a Star Wars podcast, AHCHTO Radio. That's on all your platforms. It's all the Star Wars coverage that I do. Heading into Andor mode this weekend, and obviously to keep it evergreen, we have Andor discussions that you can check out there. Recently published my first piece on StarTrek.com, and so I'm doing a little bit of catch up there as well with a different series. So
Star Trek,
yeah. Look it up after. It's pretty prolific.
Yeah.
So StarTrek.com. I had my first essay there about Strange New Worlds, and I'm hoping to do some more with them. They've been wonderful. They truly some of the best people that I've worked with in terms of just like I have an idea and then being like yes, so that's always a good feeling. Love that. And then follow me on Twitter, Instagram at that Alden Diaz, ThatAldenDiaz. Find out what else I might be doing and what else I might be up to. And then find me here lobbying for Willow.
Lobbying for Willow, and you're not alone. We got some Eric Monroe, a lot of people lobbying to have us cover Willow. And you know what? It definitely falls into a suit. I'm just reviewing 3 shows at once right now: Andor, Rings of Power, House Dragon, taking a little bit of my life energy. That's my hesitance that you're picking up on. But at the end of the day, hope wins out. So
when the Thanksgiving dinners are over and these shows are also over, then we'll have a decision.
There you go. All right, everybody, we are out of here for this week. Thank you for listening to Casterly Talk, which doesn't just mean Game of Thrones. It also means Lord of the Rings now. Thanks for watching and listening. Bye.